With its legs shattered, a wounded black bear limped into the village, desperate for help. What happened next left everyone speechless. "Grandma! Grandma! Come quick!" Little Joe Crawley, only 7 years old, was so excited he was almost jumping up and down. His grandmother, Gloria, didn't take his latest emergency too seriously. It had already been a busy morning filled with exciting finds: a frog, an old smashed-up tin he dug out of the garden, Mr. Monkey's wandering cat, and even a chameleon on a tree. She couldn't keep up with his energy after all. She was almost 70. But then Joe said something that made her drop her spatula. "You got to see this. There's a bear in the road." Lakeside was a small town near a few farms and public land where people liked to hike. Even though it was close to the forest, the people there rarely saw wild animals. Sometimes in winter, deer would come looking for food, but that was about it. So, when Joe shouted about a bear, it was something very unusual. Gloria Crawley wiped her hands and followed her diminutive guide through the front door and onto the grass-covered sidewalk. "There," Joe said with a hint of smug satisfaction. "See, I told you, there's the bear." It was a good thing Gloria had grabbed her glasses on the way out because she wouldn't have seen the bear without them. "You've got really good eyesight, Joe," she told her grandson. "Can we go closer?" Joe asked. "I want to see what he's doing." "Okay," said Gloria. Although it was probably sensible to be cautious, she was as curious as Joe about this most unusual visitor to the streets of Lakeside. "But you've got to stay with me, okay, Joe? It's a wild animal, and we don't know what he's up to." "I bet he's got a really good reason for coming here," Joe predicted. And as it turned out, the boy was 100% correct. The bear had a heartbreaking reason for coming into town. Gloria Crawley took Joe's hand, and together they walked past the corner of Gloria's yard and all the way down the breadth of the next 3 yards. Then Joe stopped abruptly. "Why is he doing that, Grandma?" the boy asked. "Why is he walking so funny?" Gloria gasped, covering her mouth in shock. This wasn't just any bear. It was injured. She could tell by how it dragged its hind leg behind it. But what truly broke her heart was the bear's defeated look, as if it had given up all hope of survival. It was clear the poor animal was suffering, likely from starvation and intense pain, so much so that it had wandered into the village, desperate for help. In that instant, Gloria's fear melted away. Watching the bear struggle to stay upright, its front paws trembling with exhaustion, was too much to bear. She quickened her steps. Joe tugged at her arm, worried. "No, Grandma, what if it gets you?" "It won't," she assured him. "He's hurt. We need to help." Then she had an idea. Bending down, she whispered, "Joe, run back to the house and get Grandma's phone. It's in the kitchen." Joe sprinted off, and Gloria heard the door close behind him. Her focus returned to the bear as it tried to stand but collapsed onto its side with a heavy thud, letting out a pained cry. For a moment she feared it was gone, but then she saw its chest rise, still breathing, but barely hanging on. Fearlessly, Gloria approached the large bear that lay immobile in the middle of the street. She wanted to get a closer look to assess the nature of its injuries. Although she had no specialized veterinary knowledge, she had grown up around animals on a dairy farm and trusted her observational skills in that regard. She had almost reached the black bear when a new problem presented itself. The streets of Lakeside were normally quiet, especially in the middle of the day, but now, abruptly, a delivery van had turned into the street and was rapidly approaching the prone bear. If Gloria didn't do something quickly, the wounded bear would be hit. From behind her, Joe came running, out of breath, shouting, "Grandma! Grandma! Look out!" Gloria raised her arms and shouted at the top of her voice, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" In the back of her mind, Gloria thought, "I'll get us all killed like this." But then, the delivery van came to a stop just a yard away from the bear. The driver got out and walked toward the animal, visibly shocked. "Whoa," he said. "I almost drove over that. Thanks for stopping me. Do you know what happened to it?" Joe's youthful eyes went wide at that. "Is he dead, Grandma? Did he die?" "No," said Gloria. "He's not dead." "Then we can save him?" Joe asked eagerly. "I hope so," Gloria said, daring the delivery man not to contradict her. But he surprised Gloria with a useful suggestion. "I'm on my way to W Street," he told her, "and my delivery is right by the police station just across from it. I'll get the sheriff to send someone here." Gloria had been planning to call 911, but now she dialed another number on the phone Joe had brought her. As soon as she got a response, she spoke quickly, describing the situation to the person on the other end. That person could hardly believe what he was hearing. Dr. Chris Kars, a small-town vet with over 20 years of experience handling routine cases like pet allergies, arthritis, and horse colic, faced the biggest challenge of his career. Earlier that day, a regular client reported an injured bear spotted near a riding trail. Dr. Kars contacted a colleague who volunteered at a wildlife sanctuary, but when they checked the area, the bear was gone. Despite rumors, the bear remained elusive, dragging its leg and vanishing like a ghost. Now, Dr. Kars finally had a confirmed location. The bear was too weak to stand. As he prepared his equipment and tranquilizers, he felt unsure of what lay ahead. But what happened when he arrived was beyond anything he could have imagined. While Gloria Crawley and her grandson Joe waited for help to arrive, more neighbors joined them in their vigil, guarding the dying bear. Someone had even parked his truck across the road to keep traffic away. One grumpy old man, old Zach, declared, "This is a death watch. The poor brute is dying as we speak." But no one else wanted to admit the possibility that he could be right. Gloria squeezed little Joe's hand as she willed that faint flicker of life, the bear's breathing, to continue. But then, as they watched, something happened that infused them all with new hope for the black bear. Linda Stokes, a woman who lived opposite Gloria, had brought a squeezed container of honey. Holding it towards the bear's muzzle, she drizzled some of the sticky sweetness into its mouth. The bear licked its chops and then opened its eyes in surprise. It gazed up at the circle of people who surrounded it protectively and then licked its lips again. Linda drizzled more honey, and the bear appeared to be reviving. With a grunt, it lifted its head, lifting its two uninjured paws in a desperate but ultimately futile attempt to get upright. "We need to help him up," a man named Paul said. No, someone else argued. "He needs to be kept still." But before a decision could be made, a new arrival took charge of the scene. Gloria Crawley was not surprised to see Sheriff Neil Leach getting out of his squad car. He was very much a hands-on officer, but he was not alone. Following in his wake was Dr. Chris Carse, the community's senior veterinary practitioner. Many of the townsfolk who had gathered to help remained on the scene. Dr. Carse was keenly aware of their intense scrutiny as he prepared a sedative. Here, he faced his first hurdle. Under normal circumstances, Dr. Carse always took the precaution of first weighing the animal he was treating to calculate the best dosage, but with the bear, it would be impossible unless he used a completely different system. Dr. Carse had read that researchers used a sliding scale that enabled them to calculate the weight of an animal by measuring its chest girth. He looked across the crowd of onlookers until he spotted Matt Root, a dedicated woodworking enthusiast. Dr. Carse took the man aside and explained what he needed. Root nodded and sprinted up the road. Moments later, he was back with a tape measure. Dr. Carse emitted a sigh of relief, took the device, and bent down over the bear. The dosage he administered was still an estimate. He had to compensate for the animal's weakened state, but once the black bear was unconscious, he was able to make a full examination of its injuries. Dr. Carse discovered that the bear had suffered fractures in 2 different places, and its trek towards the streets of Lakeside had exacerbated the damage. Additionally, its other limbs had also been impacted by its temporary disability, and there was a nasty wound that had become infected. But the bear's injuries were only part of the challenge Dr. Carse faced with its care. He really needed to get the animal to surgery, but how would that be accomplished with an animal of that size? Sheriff Neil Leach remained calm. "You need a horse trailer," he said. Dr. Carse quickly borrowed one from a friend, and within half an hour, they were ready to move the injured bear. With the help of some bystanders, they lifted the bear onto a tarp and then onto a bed of straw in the trailer. The bear, still sedated, slept through it all. As they finished, little Joe Crawley started clapping, and soon, the whole crowd joined in, relieved and proud of their heroic effort. Dr. Carse set up an enclosure at his clinic to treat the bear's wound and broken leg. When the bear woke up grumpy later, it was a good sign. The treatment was working. For the next week, the bear stayed at Dr. Carse's clinic, where he became a symbol of hope for the community. After recovering, he was moved to a wildlife sanctuary. 3 months later, fully healed, the bear was released back into the wild. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you liked this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.